Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And I'm Brian Michael. Yes, I'm back. And if you'll notice, last episode I wasn't here. It took two, not one, but two people to take my spot.
Oh,
That's
boy.
okay.
Yeah.
Happy to be back.
Big shoes to
Go
fill there.
Blazers. Let's see. The clip you saw on the top of the show is for The Mustang. It's a new film that we're going to be reviewing. This stars Matthias Schoenaerts. Well, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. As a prison inmate who joins a program where inmates train wild Mustangs for sale. And which, you know, there's been an awful lot of writers and horse movies in the last couple of years. The Rider made my top 10 list. There was Lean on Pete. There was a whole bunch of other ones. And, of course, there's a few classics that are hard to topple, such as the Black Stallion and, well, Black Stallion's the first one that comes to mind. Or no, Seabiscuit. But so I kept hearing about this one had a new twist, and this is a small little art film. And so I went and saw it because you picked it out. And this is a...
Because I picked it out.
Yeah, you picked it out. I was the one to say
It's
something
like
else. It's
100%
fine.
on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's fine. And this is a very enjoyable film because not only, you know, there's certainly the relationship he has with this horse, but we get to learn about his character. Because at first we just see him as an inmate, and then as the layers are kind of peeled back, and as the story's kind of told, we learn a little bit more and more about him, especially with a visitor that comes and visit him, his daughter, and we learn more about the relationship, and then we learn about exactly how he came to be in prison, and
yeah, that part was really interesting.
Just can't help but root for this guy, and really want what's best for this program, which you get to see is actually helping people rehabilitate.
Yes, and yes, my boyfriend does star in this movie, so of course, you know, that gets a half a star right there, just the fact that he's in it. So that always helps. But you know, you're right. It's really well made, and it has Bruce Dern in it, folks. I just have to say that. And it's not that Bruce Dern; he's been in a lot of bad movies, but I feel like that adds another half a star automatically. I just missed seeing Bruce Dern's face, and he's really good in his role. He plays the guy who's sort of the head of this horse program at the prison. And of course, you know, there's this sort of obvious kind of cliche, if you will, or parallel drawn to be like the wild Mustangs and these inmates who are kind of wild in a sense, or at least particularly his character has a temper on him and is known for not being able to control himself. And of course, he's trying to control this horse. So there's these kind of obvious parallels drawn. But what I liked about the way they went with his characters, they really didn't try to make him too likable. They didn't have this arc where all of a sudden, you know, when you find out what he did, it's really awful, and it's not something you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. It's really bad.
He was wrongly accused.
No. It was
he was
sort of a bad guy, and you get that sense like he's aware of what he did, and he knows what he did was wrong, but he did something really horrific. So I do like that they didn't really shy away from that.
Yeah, you know, but he had been in, we kind of learned is that he's been in prison for a while.
Right.
And I don't think that he ever actually really admitted it or made amends with it. When he sits down, you know, when he has a visitor and he sits down and has a conversation and has an honest conversation, because the previous ones we had seen were very short, abrupt, get out of here, I don't want to see you again. But the next conversations were, thank you for being here, I'm sorry, this is what I did, and I'm sorry I did, you know, and then, you know, this person that he's talking to throws right back at him, and I mean, it's bad.
Right.
It is.
Right.
It's so sad to see this. But what I like about with the horses, obviously, is that, you know, you have to be calm. You can't be angry. You can't be upset. You can't yell at it. And at one point in time, that's what he does. He just wants it to do what, you know, he's do
like,
as
just
I'm
do what
telling
I
you.
say,
do as I say. And you can't do that. And so I love that. And we find out, you know, that actually some of the participants in the program, they show photographs of that, and a couple of them were in the movie.
Right, they used
in the movie.
very much like The Writer, where they used real people, quote unquote, but you know, people that were actually just inmates in that program.
Non-professional actors.
Not professional actors, yes, as opposed to real people, because they're all technically, you know, none of them are CGI, as that we're aware of. But yeah, they're not, some of them, and they were seamless. You know, particularly the Native American man, who I thought thought had one of the best scenes in the movie. I believe he
Oh,
was.
yeah.
It showed him at the end that he might have been one of the
Yeah.
real inmates, and so they really all blend seamlessly. So I thought that was great. So yeah, another great horse movie. So I'm giving it 3.5 stars.
That's what I'm going to give. Yeah.
Yeah, as well. Oh, and I did want to mention, sort of interesting. It's the director is a French woman, and this is her first feature film. She was an actress previously, and that's pretty sort of like with the writer.
Pretty impressive.
The writer wasn't her first, but pretty impressive for her first feature. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a promising career right there.
Well, you know, not only with that, just being brave to be able to, you know, like we said, he's not a good guy. Because it's not Hollywood sugar-coated where you'd be like, oh, no, he's wrongly accused.
Yeah.
Or, oh, no, he's a good person, really. He did something
Yeah.
horrific. He's there for a reason.
And I have no idea. I didn't research it. I was kind of curious why a French actress would be interested in this topic in America, because it's a very American story. Well, they talk about wild mustangs and their place. Be interested in this story.
The
and this
out in the
particular.
West? Oh, come on. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
I don't know.
Who doesn't
Yeah.
want to do that?
Maybe she just wanted to make a movie with Matthias.
Yes. You
Okay.
didn't get extra points because there was a shower scene? Good heavens.
I think you commented on that more than me, sir.
So before I forget, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to click on the subscribe button there, and also click on the bell. It'll notify you whenever we post a new episode as well. So we're going to move on to our next film. We're going to look at the clip for Missing Link. Okay, so that was a clip from Missing Link. This stars the voice of Hugh Jackman as a cocky adventurer who's out to prove himself by finding one of the last Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, as we call them here in the Northwest, voiced by Zach Galifianakis. Once he does find him awfully quick, which is kind of surprised the movie that, oh, it's going to be about, oh no, there he is. Oh,
It's not a big part of the movie. He's not giving it.
Yeah.
He literally walks into the forest and he's like right
Boom.
there.
And there he is. It's a 90-minute film. They got to move things along. And he finds that he is actually the last of his kind, or so he suspects, except for there's Yeti, because that's, you know, the cold version of Sasquatch. And so he wants to go find them. I was never scared of the Yeti when I was a kid. I was scared of Bigfoot. And
That's because you're an Oregon boy.
Darn right. And so he goes. So they go off and they try to find the Yeti. Now this is stop motion animation. So if you're a film fan, of course, this is a kind of a must see.
Yes.
The animation in this one is absolutely beautiful. It's the same studio that did Coraline, that did the Box Trolls, a film I keep forgetting about, and I absolutely loved that movie. It's a crime I haven't watched that again. And the recent one was Cuba, and it's a terrible name.
And the two strings?
There you go.
Is that
That's
right?
it.
I don't
Yep,
think that's
it.
right.
And the animation in this is just as great as those ones were, and I really enjoyed this. I actually kind of wanted to see this in 3D if I'd have thought about it, if they had showings of it in 3D here locally.
No 3D
I don't mind the stop motion animation in 3D is fantastic, but especially when we do see some Yeti. I'm not giving too much away there. The hair is absolutely fantastic, and I really did enjoy that. What was odd about the film is that it's pushed as a family film, but I honestly don't think many kids under the age of 12 would enjoy this. It's a lot of talking, and there's not a lot of action, because even if we see like a Pixar film, it's kind of fast moving for the kids, and it's a little grown-up talk for the grown-ups and some innuendos that only we would understand. So I don't think it's necessarily for kids, but I don't know how many adults, because I was one of 3 in the theater, that would go and see this. So I'm kind of
I'm a little worried for Leica Studios on this one.
Yeah, this one doesn't.
When I saw a different night than you, it was not very full as well. I think, I was a little disappointed in this one. I still can recommend it. I'm giving it 3 stars. But compared to their other films, which have just been excellent one after another, they've kind of just shot it. You mentioned Kubo. Coraline, of course, was one of my top 10 that year. I mean, we loved the Box Trolls, and I loved the humor in that. So compared to even the animation, I feel like is not quite up to those standards, although the animation is gorgeous in many of the scenes in this. The voice, work is fine, but a lot of the humor is more adult humor. I mean, grown-up humor, I should say. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of kids, there were kids in the audience when I saw it, and I don't think they were getting it at all. And so I think it might be a little over their heads.
So, and then the other thing is that, with voice acting, Craig T. Nelson, Coach, or the dad from Poltergeist, is really good at it. I mean, as in The Incredibles, he's fantastic as Mr. Incredible. Never would have picked him whatsoever, because you think, you bring in Daniel Day-Lewis, or you bring in, so an actor, and Hugh Jackman, who's a fine movie star. He's got a good voice, but after a while I was like, oh, who is doing the voice? Oh, yeah, it doesn't really kind of pull you in. And Zach Galifianakis, who I really enjoy as an actor, whether it's a raunchy comedy or when he's played, more endearing parts, like True Calling, which is a great TV show, but This was just, I mean, didn't they give him, wasn't he allowed to riff or, you know, kind of punch some things up, and it could have been a lot funnier. I'm thinking, here you have a, you know, very funny comedian, and nothing kind of happened. It just kind of, it's a good movie. Yeah, three stars. I can recommend it, but I wasn't,
you know, some of the ongoing humor that I enjoyed had related to, well, there's a lot of, again, very, you know, grown-up humor. There's some climate change humor throughout the film, and evolution, there's like the main evil guy, sort of like an anti-science, evolution guy. There's an ongoing joke with the Sasquatch wanting, you know, having to do with gender identity. I don't want to give too much away. That's a funny ongoing joke throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Another one, though, that the kids in my theater were really little. I don't think it totally went over their heads. I don't think they got it at all. So I got it, and I laughed several times whenever they would bring up the name. But you know, because it was cute, it was nice. You know, he asserted, "This is what I want to be called." So that was cool. But I think a lot of I agree that Hugh Jackman's voice in particular, I didn't know who it was till the end. And Zoe Saldana, and you know, and the female character, I didn't really recognize her voice either.
Not either. At the
well, not that you have to know who the actor is, but it just didn't strike me. I thought actually Zach was probably the best of the main ones.
Yeah.
But yeah. But just compared to some of their other work, it wasn't quite as good. But I really hope that they still do okay, because I love their style of animation.
Oh gosh,
because I get so tired. Everything else just looks the same these days.
Well, and they always get too computer perfect, and that perfect is, it doesn't work. So I like this.
Yeah. Okay, so we will move on to, unfortunately, a little sad segment here on the show. This is a tribute to Agnes Varda. Passed away recently. She was born in 1928, so she lived a good 90 years, you know, so it's just pretty amazing. She's one of my favorite filmmakers personally, so Brian decided to humor me and let me do a full segment on her and her career a little bit here. So for those who are unfamiliar with Agnes Varda, she is considered, you know, really the only female that was really involved with the French New Wave. So her films came about at around the same time, and actually earlier than directors than Truffaut, Godard, Alain René, Jean Cocteau, and many others. So I'm going to go over five of her best. The five of the films I think are her best, and we can chat about them as we go through. So the first one is La Pointe Courte. This is her debut feature, 1955. I have the Agnes Varda box set by Criterion, by the way, and this is on there, and that's really worth checking out. Any of those films that are on that box set. Actually, quite a few of her films have been released by major studios. And this was considered a forerunner of the French New Wave. It actually, 1955, came out before many of the more famous films by Truffaut and others. But she didn't know she was part of a new wave because she was totally unconnected to that industry. It's filmed in a little French seaside village. It's very arty. She made the whole film for $14,000 with not paying the crew or the actors, because she, unlike the men, didn't get Cogeres du Cinema and these groups to fund her movies. She did it all on her own. She had a photography background, which is why the visuals are so amazing in this film. So moving on to the film that I think a lot of people are maybe she started to get some attention with, which is the movie Cleo from 5 to 7, 1962. Gorgeous, a black and white film, very influential, one of Madonna's all-time favorite films, so if that gets you interested in it. So this is about a woman who's this gorgeous chanteuse, am I saying that word right? Gorgeous woman who's a hypochondriac also, and it's about her kind of waiting for test results to come back. And kind of going through that in her self-involvement.
What kind of test results, Angela?
I don't want to talk about it. It's just medical tests, because it's actually part of the thing is that you don't know.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I've seen the movie.
Yeah, so in this movie used a lot of really cool jump cuts and tracking shots and a lot of really interesting visual styles. And I think you like this one, right?
No, I did enjoy that movie.
Yeah, so very influential. Madonna actually she bought the rights to it in the 80s and was going to do a remake of it starring, guess what, herself, of course. And for whatever reason, it never happened. But
the Guy Ritchie project that got away.
Yeah, but you can find online either on the Criterion channel or on other Criterion. You can find, she actually does a commentary or a little spiel about why she loves this movie and how influential it was on her, for better or worse. So then we come to the seminal film of Varda's career, one of the most important ones, Vagabond, 1985. And this is the film that kind of really put her in the big leagues. This is about a young woman who is wandering through the countryside over the winter. She's homeless and destitute, and it's a death foretold story. So it's told through the perspective of people she met along the way. And it's got a really interesting style, star-making performance by Sandrine Bonnaire. I'm probably butchering her name. and believe I don't remember what it won, but I think it won something at the Cannes Film Festival and really kind of, it didn't launch her career. Her career was already going, but it kind of brought her back in. And it's just a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend Vagabond. It's definitely more serious than a lot of Varda's work, particularly her later work.
She always, it was interesting though, here's another person. Now, actually, we've talked about this with Werner Herzog. We actually never kind of put her in the same grouping there because she made some fantastic films, but then she made some amazing documentaries.
Right.
And Gleaners and I, that's the one that really stands out for me. I absolutely loved that movie. And she is one of those people who puts herself in a documentary and isn't intrusive at all. She's actually kind of a welcome breath of fresh air because she's so sweet and she's so endearing.
Right.
She's never judgmental. She's pretty open. She talks openly. Faces and Places, another one of hers that she, talked openly about. This is I'm towards the end of my days, and this was released last year or the year before.
Right.
She knew the end was coming. She understood that she's
2017.
And when you tell me about it, and of course we were, it was very sad to lose an artist, but it was also kind of like, yeah, that's okay, because she had talked about it. She was okay with it. She's wasn't confronting it, but she was like, hey, when it happens, it's going to happen.
Right, and she had such an amazing life and career and her kids
and really Faces and Places. Beautiful. I mean, that's the way to end your career. There's your bookend right
film,
there with a fantastic film. But she looks back.
You think about so many directors that keep going, and their movies just get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And to me, that's one of the amazing things. Where you go from 1955 to La Pointe Court to 2017, Faces and Places, she's still making great films. Totally different style, and she'd gone to much more doing documentaries towards the end of her career, like you mentioned, but still great.
But never really. To me, the thing I liked about her was that she was never overtly serious. And sometimes I have a problem with Godard because he's like, look at me. Look at this art.
Well, he is Godard. He's an intellectual. It's a different style.
I love the fact that they had the little lens cap dance, which I wasn't a big fan of at the time, but it's kind of been grown and endeared on me during Gleaners and I, and the fact that she would just be able to take the time out or just go on go off course a little bit here and just kind of come back, and she was very French. It's
she
fun.
is very French, and La Pointe Court especially is very French. So if you don't like French films, you won't like that one. But
the narrative will come to me. We're fine.
Yes,
we're fine.
It takes its time.
Let's do this.
But
beautiful
person, beautiful films. I'm sad to see her go, but a great career, and definitely should check out her films. So we will move on. Wow, this is a big change. Whew. Her fresh picks. Those are films that Brian and I might have missed in the theaters the first time they came around, or maybe they never showed in the theaters, as is the case with this one. High Flying Bird, directed by Steven Soderbergh, 2019 film about a sports agent who pitches his rookie basketball player on a risky opportunity during a NBA lockout. The film stars Andre Holland, who starred in Moonlight, or co-starred in Moonlight, and is written by the same person who wrote Moonlight, in fact. And Zazie Beetz, an actress I'm starting to become really excited to see whenever she's in anything. She's also in the TV show Atlanta, and she is, I don't want to say she's the love interest because I feel like that diminishes her role a little bit in this movie, but she also works for the sports agent, and she's got a really interesting character. So, I enjoyed this movie. We watched this together a little while ago, but I didn't love it. And, I wrote down here on my notes, Moneyball meets Jerry Maguire. So if you liked Moneyball and you like Jerry Maguire, you might like this movie. But you also might be like me and think, well, it's not as good as either of those films, which is what I thought when I saw it. Because there's aspects. The way his relationship with the young rookie is sort of like the Jerry Maguire, the Tom Cruise Cuba Gooding thing, but less entertaining.
You've got to go at the angle of it's a Soderbergh movie. And Soderbergh reminds you like the Coen brothers. The high highs or, it was good.
Yeah,
and it wasn't my trip. It's fine.
Unfortunately, Soderbergh lately has been more, it's good for a while.
Well, yeah, but I always appreciate what he does. I mean, a lot of this film was shot on an iPhone, which I know doesn't really, may not be appealing to most people, but it's fascinating to me that how amazing it looks because he does his own cinematography. This is a film that looks absolutely amazing. I do enjoy this story because there actually has been NBA lockouts. I understand what they're trying to get at. It's a very interesting situation for a lot of athletes to be in. I've seen that many times over, being a sports fan, especially the NBA. And it's very well acted. It's very well paced. It's a good film. Unfortunately, that we saw it some time ago, and I had to go, what movie was this? Oh, the Soderbergh movie. Ooh, It wasn't like Bubble, where I thought it was a good movie. man, that ending
It
haunts
stayed
me.
with you, yeah.
That ending still haunts me to this day when I go back and go, ooh, that movie, I really should have given that a better rating. So, yeah.
I haven't thought
just
about this
kind
one
of
much either. And the performances are good, but I don't feel like he gives the actors, and that gets that Soderbergh style in this one. But again, comparing it to Moneyball, I didn't feel like it had any of that oomph that some of those movies, like that heightened tension that you got in Moneyball, like wondering what was going to happen. And I just was looking for more of that.
You know, when you collect this movie, it's like an album. Not all the songs are not necessarily filler, but they're not always as strong. Maybe as a collective when you look at them
it's like
through
I think it's
whole.
a 3-star
It's
film.
interesting. It's a 3-star film. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're going to move on to his distinguished classics. That's a list of movies that I put together. I called it that. So it's called, this is from 1961. This is Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. That's probably the name of my autobiography as well. This is directed by Karel Rice is how we're going to pronounce that. It stars a young Albert Finney as a factory worker who is balancing a life with two different women, one who he's having an affair with who's married and the other one who is not. And this is Albert Finney doing one heck of a job playing a character I would not want to hang out with or spend too much more time with, is how I would put it here. It's a very interesting story, especially with the relationship.
You didn't like the character?
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a bad thing about the movie. It doesn't mean I have to, I have to sit and have dinner with everybody from a film.
He's really good, though. You can't take your eyes off of him.
He's
as
fantastic.
Unlikable as he is at
times.
yes.
I mean, he's a guy who is definitely in the command of his own life, knows exactly what he's doing, knows how to hold his beer or not hold his beer and be able to work his way around it. How to harass his neighbors, which are some pretty funny scenes with his BB gun that I did enjoy. We actually saw this some time ago, and I actually remember this film very well, so that's always a good thing. It's a beautiful black and white. But it's kind of a working class. I think that's how it's considered a distinguished classic. This kind of film showing this working class in England instead of having it being some big, huge, dramatized Hollywood-esque type picture.
Yeah, this film is one of what they call the English New Wave films that came about in the late 50s and early 60s. They were films focused on social realism and much of the plight of the working class in post-war England. After World War II, of course, England was just devastated, but the working class in particular had a hard go of it. The economy wasn't great, and you had a lot of young men that didn't know what their future had for them. They just saw a future laid out of the same thing day after day, and that's one thing you see in this movie. His schedule, he goes to work. He has this kind of job that he doesn't really like very much, but it pays the bills, but he just kind of does the same thing day out. And then the weekends, he just gets drunk. He just hits the pubs, and gets involved with women. It's the same thing day in and day out, and you kind of see this. So it was part of these films. Another one in there is The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner and This Sporting Life, and Kess, which we've reviewed on the show previously with Ken Loach, was sort of at the tail end because it really was over by the late 60s, the new wave. Interestingly, Mike Leigh, who continued in this tradition, and I really think is kind of the child of this tradition, didn't start his career to the 70s until the new wave was sort of officially over, but films are very much in that kind of vein of, focused on the working class. But Albert Finney, who just passed away recently, just terrific performance. I thought you could see why he became a star after. If he wasn't a star before this movie, you could see why after this film he became a star, because he's riveting. You can't take your eyes off of him.
Not everyone can play drunk, and not everyone can play drunk well. There's usually the stereotypical kind of bad acting drunk, or he played it like a guy who's had a drink. Had a drink or two. I knew how to do that. And I believe Albert Finney did know a thing or two about that.
And his confidence with the ladies, too, the way he kind of saw, he's just very... It's hard to explain. It doesn't seem like that would be hard to act, but there's just something about this character. As soon as he's in, you're like, I feel like I know who this character is. He just establishes the character right away. And that's not always easy to do.
It's, you throw the Brando-esque thing around on awful lot, but it is kind of that kind of character where he walked into the screen and you automatically leaves. Yeah, it's there. This guy is, and immediately I thought, ugh, I don't want to hang out with this guy, but I'll watch his life from a distance. But I don't want to go.
You don't want to hang out with drunk womanizers, Brian? Why not? Come on.
I know.
There's a few scenes of those beer halls where they're challenging each other to drink more and more till the other guy passes out.
So we have Rachel Roberts. Oh, I'm going to talk about the women. Well, there's a change of roles here. Rachel Roberts and Shirley Ann Field
as the two love interests.
As the two love interests, certainly Shirley Ann Field was from Picnic from Hanging Rock. That's how I recognize her. Are just as good along with him, and I really enjoyed their roles that they had there. It was two women who. One certainly is more in love with him more than the other one. It kind of likes the idea of having this relationship, and this is the thing you do. You get a husband, and you get you get married, and the other one who is already involved with somebody, is already married, really has to struggle with
Yeah.
her relationship and the situations that they get
And
themselves
it's an
into.
interesting ending because in an American movie, I feel like in the same time period, especially in '61, I feel like the ending would have been seen as a quote unquote happy ending. And I don't
Yeah.
want to give what the ending is away, but I feel like it was a very downbeat ending.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because it's like, here he is again, the life laid
Yep.
out in front of him, and we know exactly what's going to happen. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah. So I can
All right.
recommend it.
Yes,
Definitely.
I
Great,
would definitely
great
would
pick
recommend
from
it.
your Distinguished Classics, Brian. Not that
Yay!
you'd seen any of these before you picked them, but.
No. All right. So sometimes you got to go in blindly, or you watch a show like this and go, okay, I'll write it. You write it down, and you eventually get
Yes.
around to do it, and go, why did I watch this movie? Oh, it was good. Thank goodness. That's how it happens. Or you buy some book, like this one over here. I hate that book. All right, so we're gonna. We both recommend The Mustang. We both recommend Missing Link. Both Agnes Varda, rest in peace. Just an absolute delight. Really, just start anywhere in her filmography and just start watching them. They're beautiful films. And then, of course, High Flying Bird and Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. I think is actually the strongest one there. I think. For
I think
the films,
so, yeah.
Actually, so that we
Mustang also
recommend.
very good. Interesting you brought up Brando, because one of the things I read about Matthias Schoenaerts is that someone said he's the Belgian Brando, and I said, who comes up with these things? But anyway, it was just kind of a funny
Sounds
thing.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, so certainly you can watch us on YouTube, you can follow us on Twitter, you can like us on Facebook, you can listen to us on KMUZ, or you are right now. You can watch us in Corvallis and Silverton, and certainly here in Salem. We want to thank our amazing sponsors, our awesome crew, my wonderful co-host, and you, of course, for watching. Have a great day and great movies.